live, work, and play in the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. People and stewards of these lands and waters surrounding the Algonquin for millenniums. Approval of the agenda. We have the late items. Everybody got those? Yeah, there's 5 letters in there. Thank you. And anything in here that anybody would like to add? Maureen? Thank you. Okay, and on that, we'll approve the agenda by consensus. Move on to public comments. How many have we got there, Sophie?
We have 9.
Okay.
So I believe we might want to have a 2-minute.
I think if we had the 2-minute rule, that would be pretty good. And Sophie, can you sort of buzz that when it comes to it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, start her.
So first we have Richard split
Oh, good.
on Zoom.
Okay.
Okay, Richard, are you ready?
Yes, hello, good evening. And yeah, this is a good opportunity to speak to you one more time about the topic of the TUP application. I hope my audio is good. If not, I'll turn my visual off, but let me know.
It's fine. Yeah.
It's fine, great. So I want to make basically 3 points. First of all, very disappointing to see the old style TUP application making the big mistakes again of involving the public too late, too little, rather than involving the community stakeholders instantly before even an application is filed, and creating some common sense, some understanding and a common solution. Proponent again goes its own way, deals with the regularities and pitches an application and offers a public engagement process, which is really not very convincing and not sincere. Second point is the OCP. The OCP basically says TUPs can be permitted unless the plan that is covered by the TUP has an adverse effect on the neighborhood. And I really don't know how that is evaluated. In my view, how can a 5,000 square foot light manufacturing plant comprising sea containers and some tent in a fine housing neighborhood not negatively impact the neighborhood? I don't understand that. I'd like to learn more about the process. What are the criteria to make that call? Because it is certainly, in my view, a massive impact on that neighborhood. On top of that, the applicant has later on filed for the application to put some barracks there, some low standard housing or substandard housing, which will bring people there, we don't know how many, and which definitely will impact the neighborhood. So I don't understand why the OCP rule is not being applied here and this TUP is just sent home. Also, this application for those lots, for those barracks, comes later after the OCP has been reviewed. So it has to be reviewed again. It cannot just go forward. Everything is changing, so that decision has to be reviewed. The same is true for the environmental impact study. The environmental impact study that is attached to the planner's report basically says on page 2, all documents, records, data, and files, whether electronic or otherwise, generated as part of this assignment are part of the report, which is of a summary nature and is not intended to stand alone without reference to the instructions given to PGL by the client, communications between PGL and the client, and any other reports, proposals, or documents prepared by PGL for the client. And none of that information is available to you. None of that information is available to me. So that entire environmental impact study should be dismissed. It is incomplete. The application is incomplete on that basis.
Okay.
And again,
thank you, Richard.
one more point. And the environmental impact study also did not have any information about the barracks that are going to be placed there. So everything needs to be going back to the drawing board. Plus, the application was filed on the 10th of June. You have 6 months' time to decide that. Do not decide that. Leave the other council, the new council, leave it to them to decide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard.
Next, we have Wayne Seaman.
Okay. Wayne, welcome.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Timed out to 2 minutes and 21 seconds.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, Thank you once again for the opportunity to address this most concerning issue, the threat to Bowen Island residential communities. As indicated in my previous presentation, it bears repeating publicly. I speak on behalf of many, a representation of the general sentiment of South Bowen community residents, the growing petition of opposition, and all those who have directly sent you letters of opposition. The message is clear. Our collective position remains firm, consistent, and united. We adamantly oppose and reject any idea that light manufacturing be allowed in or affect our residential area or any others on the island. We support well-planned communities. We wish to continue to do so in the future. We understand that land and housing development poses its own set of challenges as any business. However, the developer has not earned our vote of confidence over years of past actions on Bowen Island. We feel the developer has not shown to be a good steward of land and clearly is not doing so by requesting light manufacturing on residential land. May we add, they have prepared this proposal with very poor public consultation and inconsistent information. In regards to the proposed transient workers camp, we ask, why was this information or complete details not included in the original permit request and done so in a more timely manner? Why was the information not better organized or forthcoming? We point out that Bowen Island residents have already experienced problems with the temporary campers conducting work on the new water treatment facility. We also share with you that 2 similar transient worker camps were recently shut down in Gibsons for failing to comply with bylaws, rules, and regulations. Such camps should not be allowed to negatively affect the lifestyle or impact a residential neighborhood. Last 21 seconds. So then let us be perfectly clear. No delays in proceedings, need for additional information, or revised proposal will alter our position. We implore that you do the proper thing. This is a precedent-setting decision. Send the right message to the residents of Bowen Island. Please do not issue temporary use permit number 2022-0166, District Lot 2488. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Wayne.
Next, we have a person who was not able to come themselves to speak, but I'm going to ask that their letter be read aloud by me.
Thank you.
So I'm going to do that. So this is from Dr. Alex Cicera, and it says, to whom it may concern, I sincerely hope that this email is read as part of the BIM Council meeting of Monday, September 26, 2022. Public commentary on the topic listed in the subject line. I fully oppose the notion of granting a temporary use permit to the developer proposing to build modular home components in the Seymour Bay, South Bowen area. My reasoning is as follows. The area is currently zoned as residential. A factory in a small residential area would mean a high increase in traffic volume and the volume of migrant workers. There is only one vehicular way to approach to the proposed building area, and that route is via Sunset County Point, which is a narrow, winding, family-centered road proliferated by children and pets who would be subjected to a large number of truck and migrant worker activity. Absolutely not ideal. Granting a permit would set a precedent for such permits, thus opening the possibility of more of this type of work in the future by the same or different developers. It is essentially a permit that converts a quiet residential neighborhood into a factory-centric hub of activity, which would redefine the very fabric of the current community and alter the charm that brought the current homeowners to reside here. The residents of this community didn't simply buy their home, but rather they bought into a particular quality of life and a specific community experience. The developer's presence would change both dramatically. Thank you for taking the time to consider the above. So once again, that was me reading a letter from Dr. Alex Cicera.
Thank you, Sophie.
Next, we have another person who was unable to come and speak, and they wanted to remain anonymous due to their tenant status. So this person is saying, my greatest issue with having had the temporary off-island workers being stationed at the Cook Bay water facility is because this is a camp situation. The workers behave as though they're in a remote area and have carte blanche to behave as if they have no neighbors and have no ordinary neighborly rules to follow. I have also witnessed many times friends and family of the workers being invited to stay for extended periods, as this is essentially free camping on Bowen Island. In fact, I was forced to call 911 one evening when a domestic dispute between a worker and his female partner who was visiting escalated to the point I was worried something very serious would happen. This argument and subsequent visit continued into the very early morning hours. These folks seem to have work hard, party harder mentality, and many times have little regard for residents in the vicinity. The camping area has also become a works yard with loud equipment and construction vehicles banging and clanging in the very early morning hours and then again in the early evening. So once again, that was me reading a letter from an anonymous person in regards to the temporary permit.
Thank you.
So next we have Darren Jennings.
Aaron, welcome.
Hello, everybody. My submission is 17 and a half minutes long, so I'm not going to be able to read all that. So I'm going to read you the introduction and try to clarify a little bit for everybody here who's here today, because obviously we got off on the wrong foot. So, Mr. Mayor and Council and staff, I'd like to acknowledge staff on a regular basis because I know how hard all of you work, staff, and sometimes your job is not easy to transmit this kind of stuff. And I do have to say from the outset that the temporary use permit application was not very clear. We followed what the application suggested, but in hindsight, I now very much realize that an issue like this should have had a public engagement piece and component put to it. So with that said, Mayor, Council, staff, thank you for your service during this unprecedented time for this community. I personally know what it takes to sit in your position, and I appreciate all your hard effort through a very difficult time. So on we go. Instead of speaking only to the handouts that I'd like to hand out to you, I'm just going to read you the introduction. To start, I regret that our team did not realize there was so much uncertainty about construction methodology, such that there are serious misconceptions about the area's real challenge to construction. And by area, I mean the entire bloody island, folks. I've been doing this 25 years. This is not going to be easy to get out of this housing trajectory that we're going through. And this is not about official affordable housing, put it in the wrong neighborhood. This is construction in general. We're seeing $450 a square foot to $550 a square foot pricing now. And I estimate inside a year and a half, it could be $700. How will Bowen Island rebuild itself at those costs? So quite simply, without reading this script, what we were proposing was a low-key shock to assist the community to build itself out and not to become a detriment to the community, not to have endless trucking, not to be a factory. This was to be a shop that would assist us building homes of many. Sorry, I apologize. As you can tell, the emotion is on both sides of the equation, and the emotion coming from me is pure and simple, Bowen Island related and passionate, not an evil developer with horns and a tail. So let me get back to my thing if I can. I regret our team did not realize that there's so much uncertainty about construction methodology such that there are serious misconceptions about the area's real challenges to construction and sustainability. Our team is so entrenched in evolving construction practices that I guess we did not understand that others in the area may not be aware of the mounting challenges to deliver island housing, no matter its final level or user. What we thought was a practical means forward to address some of these challenges and a way to lessen the impact of construction on the neighborhood, unfortunately has been perceived to be an unsuitable and dangerous detriment. This was not the intent at all. To our credit, if I may, when we learned of the misunderstanding circulating in the neighborhood, we attempted to circulate a document to be sent to the South Bay Community Association members on September 9th, only one day before the AGM. I guess that wasn't enough time for that document to be circulated to the 100+ names on that mailing list. However, I now understand that this letter and additional documentation has been sent to all the SPCA members. So thank you, SPCA board, for doing this. This is the same documentation I would like to pass out to you all. And a final thank you to those neighbors, and there were some neighbors that in the past weeks have called to discuss with me this proposal instead of just drawing their own conclusions. And that is much appreciated. So in conclusion, to you, councils, mayor, staff, and everybody else in the room, with due respect and all that said, mayor and council, if you decide to move forward with the revised TUP application next month, we are in absolute agreement with the full public engagement requirement and will cooperate fully in second effort. Quite clearly, it is needed, and not only for this project, but for island construction in general, folks. Thank you for your time tonight. Sorry for not knowing I had a 2 minutes. And thank you for letting me go over it.
Thank you, Darren.
Next we have Wolfgang.
Welcome. Yeah, I want to make it brief.
Permitted.
I don't have to tell you our current situation on Bowen Island. It's virtually impossible to do construction due to the lack of people. And the people which we used to have left us, and we cannot hire anybody new because there's no housing. So since we cannot even accommodate those we desperately need to create housing, we have to look for different ways of doing construction. One is not building cheap houses. No, it is just to pre-manufacturing certain pieces of a building, which if you ever take an interest in watching construction done on the mainland, more and more sites have those assembly sheds on the sites where they have basically a pre-manufacturing of elements. They are not building homes, it's elements, just to save on labor. Now, not having labor on board, not having the housing to accommodate labor, we might as well say, if we cannot do or we are not allowed to find alternatives, realize there will be no more construction on Bowen Island. If that is council's desire, and I see you nodding, I just learned that your Southbourne Housing has vehemently opposed that. If there is no more housing, then just get used to rising prices, more and more very unpleasant deteriorations in our community, unless there's somebody, let's say, clear-minded enough to say, well, what options do we actually have? Now, if you have other options, let us know. We cannot come up with anything better. If that's not good enough, we will just leave and come back. Well, maybe my kids in 5-10 years, it will not get any better. It depends on your wisdom in insights and learning about the issue. Mr. Mayor, rather than lending your support to those who are ill-informed and just badmouth us, it's maybe I had wished that you would take a different approach to your departure. I'm sad. Thank you.
Thank you, Wolfgang.
We have Judy Getty.
That was terrifying.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to be on record as opposing the process of temporary use permits. And I think that the whole problem of using that vehicle is that you don't have enough time to have a public discussion and work through a lot of these difficulties. My other question, and I know that we can't get into a dialogue, is what happened to the rezoning of the public lands or the surplus lands that we're going to do light industrial? And it seems to me that if that is somehow or other lost in the works, that we need to revive that. So imposing institutions, manufacturing, I guess the cider would be light industrial, commercial into residential neighborhoods is a shock to Bowen, and it's something that needs more discussion and more talking, and that's not possible with the TUP. So it may be a temporary solution, but the process is flawed, and it creates all sorts of dissension and problems in our community. I don't think it leaves council in a good light either. So I think somehow or other get some discussions happening so that people can understand what the alternatives are, if there are some alternatives. I don't think the scare tactics are at all helpful. We need to be able to figure out some decent compromises and solutions to all of our problems.
Thank you, Judy.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, we will move on.
Great.
Did you miss something?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Okay. Mayor and Council, my name is Patricia Larson. I'm a long-time Bowen Island resident. I've lived here for 44 years. I live at 655 Taylor Road in Queen Charlotte Heights, and I am here to strongly oppose the issuance of this temporary use permit. Some years ago in our neighborhood, we had an experience with a contractor who wanted to put a cement factory at the end of Taylor Road on Dallas property, right next to the residential properties on the road. As you can well imagine, the neighborhood was up in arms. We all sent letters of opposition, and consequently the proposed plan was disallowed. By allowing the proposed light manufacturing facility to go into Seymour Bay would be setting a very dangerous, in my humble opinion, precedent for the rest of the residential areas on Bowen Island. To put anything of this nature next to a residential area where people have invested their life savings with the expectation of a quiet neighborhood is ludicrous. Not only does this upset our quiet residential lives, it has a negative impact on property values. I implore this council to disallow this permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Thought there was 9, that's still on the 8th.
Yeah, that was my mistake.
Okay.
Originally I was gonna read Rebecca's letter, but then she was able to attend it.
Okay, we're gonna move on. Anybody else want to speak before we finish up here?
Who's Rebecca? Or sorry, it's
Yeah,
Patricia. Patricia, yeah, okay, great.
Just making sure
I
I
had the letter, yeah.
Okay,
making sure we didn't miss anything.
and we are going to move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything in the consent agenda that they would like more clarification on? Or discussion on? Yes, go ahead.
Item 3.4, please.
3.4?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? As I see nobody else, the recommendation is council approved the items outlined September 26, 2022 consent agenda. As amended, I'm going to move that. Okay, I got Mike. Okay, so we'll go right to Maureen and your question on 3.4.
Yeah, and it's not specifically related to the variance, but it is related to some of the feedback that we've received. Part of the vision for Dorman Point, as far as Metro Vancouver is concerned, is to have it as a potential site for weddings, which I think is an absolutely lovely idea. However, they have no intention of putting in any sort of bathroom facilities up there. And I cannot imagine having a wedding at Dorman Point with no bathroom facilities. So I just would like, when it comes time for us to consider the variance, that we also consider sending a letter to Metro Vancouver saying, we think you really need to consider this. So this is the toilet objection.
You want to add that on the recommendation? Is that what you're saying? Or
No, I think that the variance stands by itself and should be considered. This is not specifically part of the variance, but just that some letter be sent to Metro Vancouver requesting that they consider thinking about this.
That's a great idea.
If I may, Maureen, is it possible to ask? I completely agree with you about the washrooms. Should we also be asking about parking? If we're talking about weddings, washrooms is one thing, parking is another. Should that be included in the letter?
Possibly, and maybe we could discuss it more fully when we get to the actual item, although I guess we are considering it now.
Yeah, Councillor Nicholson, it's up on the consent agenda for approval.
Right. So just clarification around their plans for parking, because it's pretty tight up there.
Yeah.
Okay, can we just put that in the minutes? Okay, Allison first, and then Sue Ellen.
So there's a beach staircase, which I didn't have a problem with. Is the viewpoint to be used for wedding? Is that part of the idea, or do you know?
I don't know.
Okay, so I don't know that we should be issuing it without going back to them and saying, you know, clarifying the uses of the viewpoint, and if it's to be used for weddings and things that would normally attract parking and people being there for a number of hours, then maybe we should be approving of the variance at this point.
Thank you
I
for
don't
your,
have a problem with the staircase, but I guess it's these other uses, and if the viewpoint contributes to parking and
yeah, well, weddings will definitely contribute to that, Sue Ellen, and then Rob.
thank you. I think what's in front of us today is just the variance of the setbacks, 2 meters for the beach staircase, 11 meters for the viewpoint instead of the 30 meters for everything. Is that correct, Daniel? Yes. And so having my experience with Metro Vancouver parks as well as other parks is that when there's a big event, toilets are rented, like everything else. And rather than building a city, that's going way too far. But until facilities are needed, like for example, eventually a washroom was built at the entrance to Crippen Park when it was time, when the need was established. You know, we don't know what their plans are. We don't know how it will evolve. I've seen weddings in the meadow. You know, I don't think that we should be holding up this step in the process, which is just the relaxation of the setbacks for park use that everybody on Bowen can participate in. So not that you're not making good points, I just think that might come up on a future letter or something like that. And for me, I'm going to move that council issue development variance permit DVP 2022-0190 for the variance of setback to the sea for Dorman Point, legally described as Lot 6, District Block 1910, Plan 13749, PID 008-97640.
I'd like to second that.
Okay, thanks, Maureen. Go ahead, Daniel.
Can I just speak for a second? Just
Yeah.
to note that the property is outside of the Crippen Park zone. So it's zoned rural residential, I believe. So our zone permits trails and open space in any zone. So it's permitted under that zone. But to do an assembly type event would require rezoning. So if that's Crippen Park's intent to, you know, essentially extend the Crippen Park zone to cover this property, it would require a rezoning process.
Okay.
Okay, well, that covers it, sir.
Yeah, and then the other note is I did pass on when we received comments from individuals about the bathroom need. I did pass on those comments to the applicant to Metro Vancouver, but it could be helpful if council has similar concerns that we do send, you know, a letter from council saying that not part of the variance process, but that this is a concern that they should address.
Okay, well, I think that's a great idea, and let's finish this one up. So all in favor?
Okay.
All right, Rob, sorry,
Yeah, I just want to dovetail a bit on what Councillor Flass had to say about this as well. Let's not jump the gun with let's start parking and this. We don't, you know, because Metro doesn't even want people to be driving to these parks either, and it is actually very close to the cove to walk up there. So I think we can pass this and let's. You know, I'm sure they've thought about this stuff and I don't have a problem with mentioning it to them, but let's also not sort of throw out problems that haven't even occurred yet, or even start creating problems by building parking and then having weddings driving over there. That's not the idea of this park. It's a nature area where we want people to walk, and we should design it like that. So I just wanted to make that as a comment.
good comment, Allison.
Just for the benefit of the people that have written in and raised the concerns, can we put something in the minutes that it's owned residential and assembly use is not allowed without a special permit.
Can we just do that? And I was just gonna do another recommendation that we send a letter to them.
Well, that's
with our
the
concerns.
washrooms, which I think are.
Washrooms and the parking. Yeah.
But I mean, I wasn't comfortable issuing the variance, knowing that there would be assembly use there, but understanding zoning now, and there can't be assembly use, then I'm okay with the variance. But just so there's the people that have written in, you know, being concerned, it just might give them a little comfort. Years from now, when somebody asks, why did you issue that variance?
Okay, so let's finish this and then see how we're gonna deal with this additional part. I'm gonna ask a question, all in favor. Maureen? Okay. Allison, opposition.
No, I put my hand up. For you.
Fast. Okay, now how do we deal with this other part of it? I think they should have a letter from council.
Will staff talking to staff at Metro about these issues?
And I haven't specifically talked about the zoning issue. That's the first I've heard of it.
Okay.
And like I said, I passed on when we received comments from people as part of the variance. I would pass those comments on to Metro Vancouver. But I think that if council mirrors those concerns, then I think it should come from council as well to say, you know, this is something that you want to fund.
Would move that a letter be sent from council.
Yeah.
Raising the concern about lack of washroom or porta potty facilities at the park, given its district.
So have you got David?
Letter and also mention the zoning issue.
And raise that it's only zoned for.
Yeah.
I think that's a good heads up for him too.
Heads up. Yeah, good. Yeah. Okay. You want to move that?
Well, let's just see how Sophie's doing here. She's doing present. Yes, please.
That a letter be sent to Metro Vancouver, regarding concerns raised by community members regarding the lack of walking facilities.
And confirming that the zoning does not allow.
And
Assembly use.
confirming that this.
Confirming that the zoning, residential zoning does not allow.
Assembly. Perfect. Okay, I'll move that.
Can we include the word Metro Vancouver Parks?
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely. Can I speak?
Sure you can.
Okay. I think this is all part of the normal evolution of a park. And we have seen good things with Crippen Regional Parks. Facilities are added when needed, and they I worry about sending a letter with concerns at this really early stage when we've been encouraging them all the way along. And our parks plan and our official community plan encourage the community, council, everybody to invite partners and collaborators on protecting public land and parks. And we have another proposal as well from Metro Vancouver Parks. And I would just hesitate to send a letter from council with concerns at this point, when we know that the from our planner that the letters are being forwarded on to Metro Vancouver Parks. And if I may also just say, I don't see many weddings, not even down in Crippen Meadow, where those I was staff at the time, and I remember that those shelters were designed and the washrooms, toilets were put in back there because it was expected that it would become a place of rentals and that kind of thing. But it didn't evolve that way. So it would have been, I just think we're jumping the gun. It's not the right
This
time.
all it is a pleasant reminder. They got a lot on their plates. And as a pleasant reminder, it's been brought up by a couple of our citizens that they're concerned about it. So we're passing that concern on. That's all we're doing. So I'm going to move that. A second? Second, Allison, yeah. Further discussion?
Yes, for me.
Okay.
I think this is exactly the right time to be bringing this up with Metro. And I honestly don't think they will see it as aggressive or preemptive at all. They'll just see it as part of the normal feedback in the process of working with a municipality. It doesn't strike me as unusual.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so David, did you have any comments? Okay, I'll ask a question. All in favor? And opposed? Okay, councillors. Bast and Wynan in opposition. Okay, so we're gonna move on over there into delegations. Bowen Island Museum and Archives Annual Report. Rob Forbes. Just be up on the screen there somewhere.
Rob Forbes. I don't see him in my Zoom list. Virtually, is anyone attending on behalf of Rob? I think maybe they're not here.
Okay. Does somebody want to give him a ringle dingle and we'll put it in a little bit later if we can? Maybe ask, Liam, do you have a number for him? You won't have it at home, eh?
It's not our job to chase.
It's 6:50 and he was scheduled for 6:45.
Correct. Yeah, I really don't think it's.
Sometimes there's connectivity problems or something like that.
So running at the ferry that running.
Yeah.
Well, we'll leave it open for now. If he shows up, then we may be able to fit it in. Okay, so we're going to number 6.1 and the temporary use permit application. PUP 2022-0166 Bowen Island Properties, Light Manufacturing. Daniel Martin, OPD Manager of Planning. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so it's discussed here to talk about temporary use permit 2022-0166 for Dorman Island Properties. So this temporary use permit application is for a site at the end of Seymour Bay Drive. It's in the CD6 Cowan Point Comprehensive Zone, Area 8. Zone permits dwelling and retreat center. It's up to residential lot. The way of reminder, so official community plan, our official community plan designates temporary permits and gives an objective and a policy for what to consider when issuing these permits. So objective 98 is to give consideration to TUPs for short-term use. And policy 235 says the municipality may consider issuing temporary use permits provided they do not create an unacceptable negative impact upon the natural environment or the character of the neighborhood. So as discussed at the the July 26th meeting, this proposal for temporary use permit is to build a temporary facility to fabricate wooden housing components and panels for a 3-year term. And at that July 26th meeting, council gave notice they'll be considering the issuance of the TUP at the September 26th meeting. Council and authorized staff to give notice for that issuance. So at the time of writing this, we had received 21 responses, some of which comprised of petitions from multiple people opposed to the TUP. 3 speakers spoke at the September 20th special council meeting opposed to the TUP. And then I counted 6 speakers at the meeting tonight opposed, and then the 2 applicants spoke in favor. And I'll flag we did receive 1 letter that's in the on-table package that was in support of the TUP. Yeah. I always hate trying to synthesize comments, but on a very broad level, common concerns include the increase in traffic along Cowan Point Road and Seymour Bay Drive, concerns for increase in construction noise and activity, and then probably the strongest one at the end, the unsuitability of the proposed temporary use permit in a residential area in this residential. And then the report notes that Bowen Island Properties has requested to amend their application to permit temporary worker housing as part of their TUP. So I note here similar to the TUP issued by BIM for temporary worker housing at the water treatment plant. For council to consider the change to the TUP, notice would need to be reissued for the amended permit. So essentially this would be the new introduction of the amended permit. Council would again give notice that they would be considering the issuance of the permit at a future council meeting. And then staff have added conditions to the TUP over the light manufacturing use as well. So conditions include hours of operation, contact information, and specifications on the service fees of water, septic, and refuse pickup. But based on the amended permit, the staff recommendation would be that council would again give notice to consider issuing the amended permit at the October 24th, 2022 meeting, and that the council require the applicant to hold a public information prior to consideration of that TUP. But then I'll just go that the report lists alternatives for council. So I wanted to sort of have them all here in context. So that option 0 at the start is that recommendation, and then 1, 2, and 3 are as listed in the report. So option 1 would be council simply just reject the TUP. So not willing to consider additional information or amending the permit. The second option listed, number 2, would be to defer consideration of the TUP unamended. So not accepting essentially rejecting the temporary worker amendment, but deferring consideration of the TUP itself to the October 24th meeting or a later meeting. And the purpose of that would be to require the applicant to hold a public information meeting prior to consideration of the TUP. And then the third option I list here as an option for council is that council has advertised, they are considering the issuance of the TUP at this meeting. And council could issue the TUP at this meeting, although staff don't recommend this option, but it is an option for council. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Daniel. Any conversation on this? I think it's fair to give them another run at it, and because one of the biggest objections was there was no public consultation with this, and I think it'd be fair to give them time to organize some public consultation and refine their application, because it seems to be sort of competing things in there where they're going to put a plant in, they're not going to put a plant in, panel plant, and they aren't going to put a panel plant. So how many workers are there going to be? Is there going to be a cement floor on this thing? There's just so much information that we don't have. And I would hope that they would refine that application and give us a lot more information before that time. That's where I sit on it. So then I'll go with David first and Rob.
Thank you, Gary. You said a lot of things that I would have said as well. It's just, I don't have enough information. None of us have enough information. The community doesn't have enough information. And clearly there's some misunderstandings, but fair enough when there isn't information. So I'd like to defer. I'm not sure exactly where we go. I'd like to defer this certainly until we've had a public information meeting so that the community can properly understand what's being proposed and can make then and can either come on side or not. I mean, clearly the TUP, within the TUP mechanism, they cannot have a negative impact on the character of the neighborhood. And so the neighborhood needs to be brought along. Without that, it wouldn't work. I appreciate that we certainly need some help in figuring out how to build our houses less expensively. So I support the initiative from that perspective, but clearly we need to figure out the difficulties in terms of making this fit within a community, whether it can or not. There are, of course, other lands such as our potential light industrial lands right here, but of course that's owned by the community, and it would have to be purchased or leased or something like that, which adds to the cost. Yeah. So my thoughts, some sort of deferral, but certainly we need an information.
They'll probably, have you got those options up again? Sorry.
Yeah, well, I didn't quite agree with option 2 because it's.
Well, I think it's 0.
Let me look at option.
The first one.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, yeah.
That's sort of the way you were thinking. Okay.
Yeah, because there's no point dropping the number 2, dropping the construction camp out of it because it doesn't work without some sort of construction camp, according to the proponent, that there are not enough workers. So you have to have that. Whether that, I mean, that could be all part of the discussion because the whole thing needs to be discussed.
To be part of the discussion, and then be quite a discussion. Robert?
Yeah, very, very similar to both previous speakers. I think with the TUP, if we're going to go ahead with something like that, we need, broad-based community support, and we obviously don't have that with the letters that we've been getting. I was actually surprised to see the reaction. So at first it's sort of like, oh yeah, it makes sense, but I think there needs to be way better communication done. I think the developer recognizes that as well. But also there needs to be broad support for something like this to move forward. And if there is no community support and this gets thrown in there, we could just be creating a really big conflict. And I think that would be a big mistake. So I agree moving this forward. I would also suggest instead of this being moved to our last council meeting and then the next council having a role with it, that this is something that's moved on to the next council that comes in, because they're going to have to work with it down the road. They're going to have to live with the decision as well. So I think the timing, there's one on there, October 24th, which would be probably one of our last ones. Yeah, I think it will make much more sense to the, if it is going to go that way, to move it on to the next council. But I think for the time being, probably one will make the most sense for now.
Yeah.
1 or 0?
Or is 0.
One
Yeah,
or
sorry, my apologies. Yeah, 0. It's 0.
Yeah.
Hold on, I want to talk to Danny first. And just to one thing to finance. Yeah, council is going to defer to a later meeting, then council could consider, rather than deferring consideration of the permit, so saying we will sit to decide it at the October 24th meeting. You could decide just to defer it to essentially be reintroduced to new notice given at a future meeting, so that it's clear that it's not the new council coming in to sit and decide on it, but they would get you defer it for a public meeting to a meeting in November or December, but then staff would again sort of introduce the application, right? Give the formal LGA required notice period at that point, and it would be decided. And the new council would oversee that whole notice period.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay. So we need to get some wording on that.
Allison?
I'm okay with the October 24th. I'm just thinking from I think the community is going to want to not want to be hanging around. I can't physically or practically see how you could consider one before January, just given Christmas and vacation and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I gather the application was submitted in June. So I'm in favor of option 0. And I'm just a little curious as to the public information meeting. We want them to consult with staff as to it should be on site, and a lot of information actually in writing handed out, how many employees, how many car spots. I just have no real feel for, and I haven't got the 17-minute presentation. So, and then I guess another issue I've got is hours of operation. 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Is that 7 days a week? In the management plan for the construction facility, that's, so I think all those things need to be addressed, plus clearly understanding what's going to be done there, maybe some pictures of other facilities and showing what is done. I have no idea what it is they're trying to do.
No,
Fully in favor of 0.
Thank you. And I noticed Wayne said that for welcome. Thank you, Daniel. I don't know if you're going to be able to answer all my questions, because I started digging into the OCP as well, and wondering what is the planning. Anyway, I've heard from the neighbors. Thank you, everybody, for your input. And I gather that the petition is still growing, is what I heard. So I think I'm paying attention to that. I would love to have a site visit. I don't know, from looking at the map, everything looks different than it did years ago there, and I'm not sure exactly. I would like to see the scale, how close things are, how steep things are, the roads, that kind of thing, as well as the site. I'm interested in the fact I was looking at the report, and under ecological considerations, it says it's not in a development permit area, but it is in another development permit area for form and character. And for example, it's the Cowan Point development permit area is here, Schedule 7. And I think that would have that in that area over here somewhere. And so this, I mean, it doesn't get looked at very often, but I think there might be time to do some catch-up planning. Because, I mean, this was well before your staff's time and all that kind of thing, but it does say, for example, I thought that when you have a development permit area, there should be guidelines in the land use bylaw or OCP. Can you explain?
Yes, so for a DP to be in effect, it needs to be designated in the OCP and guidelines adopted either in the OCP or the land use bylaw. So the Cowan Point development permit area is one of a few we have where it is designated in the OCP and not guidelines are not adopted in the land use bylaw, so it's not in effect. And we also have some that are the reverse where we have guidelines adopted in the bylaw that are not designated in the OCP. So yeah, not.
Okay, so we don't have the DP, the development guidelines for a permit. So one couldn't be issued. Okay, because I think guidelines would help everybody be clear on what the process is. And I did look at a provincial webpage about development permit areas, and it says that guidelines will be adopted as an amendment to the land use bylaw. That's what it says in our OCP, sorry. And it also says the word must is used at the provincial page. So I'm just curious about that. Anyway, what I just wanted to read a couple things from our official community plan that might provide some guidance for all of us. I'm on page 49 of my printed copy. I don't know what it is now. Policy 151. The areas identified on Schedule B7 are designated as Cowan Point development permit area for the purposes of form and character of commercial and multi-family residential development permit. And so that, you know, and there's a bunch of policies in here about road standards, aesthetic, address such issues as pedestrian and cyclist movements, creek crossings, and there's a number of objectives as well, including to protect environmentally sensitive areas, minimize, encourage retention of natural vegetation, maximize number of residential units. Anyway, you can imagine there's a bunch of them, and there's about 3 pages of them. And then there's another section back in section 11, which talks about the official community plans established Cowan Point development permit guidelines to permit the orderly development of subject lands while controlling the character of commercial and multifamily residential development in terms of building siting, form, exterior design, landscaping, lighting, and the form and character of parking areas. Guidelines will be adopted as an amendment to the land use bylaw, which we haven't done yet. So one of the things I thought might be appropriate in light of community concern and to make things clear for everybody, including the proponent, is that if the future council decides to do an official community plan update or some kind of targeted review of the official community plan, that developing guidelines for the Cowan Point development permit area might be appropriate at that time when there's lots of community consultation and there's more context and the issues of the housing crisis and construction costs and all those things might be better communicated. So I'm just going to leave that there, but I propose right now that I don't think a temporary use permit is appropriate for this situation, and where everything in the OCP talks about commercial and residential, and I don't think it's appropriate for that kind of change of use, that kind of moving to light industrial from neighborhood. Anyway, that's my take on it. So I'm more in favor of number 1 for now. We'll have to put it into the next council. Is my take on that. Having seen so many changes down there over the years, including to Seymour Bay Park, which was supposed to be passive park like Crippen. And that's where I'll leave it at this point.
Okay, thank you, Simone. Maureen?
Thank you, Mayor Ander. Most of the points that I wanted to make have already been made. Other than to say that I, like Councillor Winan, was surprised by the extent of the response to this application. So trying to get a handle on what was going on, because I was puzzled by the breadth of the correspondence. I went to try to find the site of the proposed workshop, and wasn't successful. Got a little bit turned around. So as Councillor Fast suggested, it would be I think a good idea for council to go and have a site visit and just get a handle on where this place is located. From Daniel's comments, written report, he mentioned that the actual site of the workshop is some 200 meters away from the closest residence. So I am quite bad with distances, and actually being on the ground and seeing what that looks like, I think would be helpful for council, and also helpful for members of the public who may be anticipating that this might be in their backyard, when in fact it may not be close at all. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Maureen. So I think from what I'm hearing here is option 0 there. I would recommend that council give notice of consideration of TUP 2022-0166 as amended to the October 24th meeting, and the council require the applicant to hold a public information meeting prior to consideration of TUP 2022-0166 at the October 24th, 2022 meeting. I guess we should put something in there about a site visit. Who's interested in a site visit?
And would a site visit be organized for council?
Yeah, at some point in time. You got that? Okay, wonderful. I'll move that. Second. Okay, Michael, second to you, and further conversation.
Yeah, I just want to say one quick thing is I hope this does, it'll be going to the site, and I hope people can come at least both sides with a bit of a open mind, and not like that it doesn't turn into just a battle between two groups, and that we create more division over there. That's hopefully not what this will drive towards. So hopefully with a bit more information, and we'll see on the 24th if we can make a decision. But yeah,
I think most of the public know where that is, but it's not. I wasn't thinking it was going to be open to the public.
The open house. No, the open house. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking.
Yeah. No.
Okay, thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
I'll ask a question.
No. Who is it? Yeah. It's not regular, no. Talk to me later about it though. So I'll ask a question. We got a first and second on that. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye. And opposed? And Councillor Fast. And sorry, I didn't see you, Maureen. Were you in favor?
Option 0.
Option 0.
You notice?
I was in favor.
Okay, thank you.
In comment to there's a question period at the end of the meeting.
Yeah.
So you can hang around, or you can go home and zoom in and ask the question.
Do we need to read the second part of that?
No, because it's in the recommendation.
Is it?
Yeah.
I just see a big long recommendation.
No, that's not the one we read. The one.
Do you notice, Daniel? The council?
Yeah, we just agreed on doing option 0, so I think we have to.
Yeah, so this was
right.
Yeah, so what's written in the package that I had cut.
So I'm going to move the second part, that council authorize staff to give notice for the consideration of issuance of temporary threat.
And I had taken that this was what the mayor was moving, was the motion in the agenda, but without reading
We just passed the motion that was in your stack report.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that is what, oh, the mayor didn't read it, so it.
I think if something was read into the record as to what it was that everybody just voted on.
well, you can put it up on the screen again.
I can read the poll.
Okay. Would you say?
It's just that you didn't read the legal description of the property, but I can read that right now.
Okay, thank you.
That notice be given that council will be considering the issuance of temporary use permit 2022-0166 as amended at the September 26th, 2022 meeting. Sorry, was it the amended?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Meeting for light manufacturing use and temporary worker accommodation at a properly legally described as District Lot 2448, Group 1, New Westminster District. Accept plans EPP 55410 and EPP 55411, PID 015-902-439 at the October 24th, 2022 meeting of council. That a site visit be scheduled with council before October 24th. That council authorize staff to give notice for the consideration of issuance of temporary use permit 2022-0166 or light manufacturing use at a properly legally described as District Lot 2448, Group 1, New Westminster District, accept plans EPP 55410 and EPP 55411, PID 015-902-439, and that council require the applicant to hold a public information meeting prior to consideration of TUP 2022-0166 at the October 24th, 2022 meeting.
Okay,
That was the motion we voted on.
yes, yeah, but it's the extended motion.
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah.
I was looking, that's going, wait, did we do that?
Yeah.
One question is just in the part where we say, and that council authorized staff to give notice for the consideration of issuance, should we say as amended?
Yes, so as amended for light manufacturing use and temporary work,
Right, so that,
and that's second part.
Yeah.
Just
So
to mirror what's in the first.
Yes.
So repeat it in the second.
it just should say as amended, just to be crystal clear to everybody. That it also includes the temporary worker accommodation. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Could I just ask Daniel one thing? When we talk about here about a public meeting, a public information meeting, the rules around a public information, i.e. the amount of notice you've got to serve, the location and the invitation. When we say we're going to authorize or we're going to require, we are going to require public information. What are the rules around those public information? What does the applicant have to do to give sufficient notice, etc., to make this a proper public information?
So there are requirements in our development approvals procedure bylaw.
So what I think I'm asking, it is spelled out that this is what he or the applicant has to do to satisfy our requirements, and it's laid out. So the day's notice or how much time he's got to give and the rest.
Yeah.
Just as we would for a council meeting.
And you, that's definitely being included and invited to
Yes.
that meeting.
Yeah, and it's required that it be held at least 14 days.
Before that.
Yeah. And the requirements and some of this, I think, you would be informing the applicant to extend. So for example, the requirement is, and sorry, this is bylaws, it's not readable, within 100-meter radius of the parcels. And I know for this TUP, we expanded the notice. So we went beyond the 100-meter radius to include all of Seaman Drive and Shore Lane. Mail notice. So we would again be requiring the applicant to use that expanded mailing list.
And
which is 300 meters.
And the sign, it doesn't have to be at the entrance to their property. It could be at the entrance to Seymour Bay Drive, correct? On our property.
Yeah, which is where it should be.
Which is where it should be.
And we would be, when we get received notice from the applicant of the date of the meeting, we would be advertising the notice like through our channels as well.
Through the current and whatnot.
Yeah, and likely what I would do too is make a list of people who've submitted comment and send electronic notice to them as well.
Thank you. Okay, everybody happy? Let's move on. 6.2 Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing Agreement to Lease Renewal. Liam Edwards. GAO, hop along.
Thank you, Mayor.
Not gonna wait. Questions answered. Oh. Okay.
Reminder.
I didn't mean to clear the room like that.
Let's get back to order here. Liam, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. So we're bringing this back. I don't have a, we spoke to it earlier at a previous council meeting, and there was a council resolution to move forward with pursuing an extension for the Birch agreement to lease land on Lot 3 for a period of 1 year with the option to renew. And I have not finalized the lease because there was a bit of back and forth with Birch about that duration. Their preference was to hold with 3 years. But then, as some of you may recall, when we were at UBCM convention in Whistler, we had a very positive meeting with BC Housing staff as well as ministry staff, and they confirmed that moving to a 1 year agreement to lease was not detrimental to any funding application that they would be submitting. And so once I was able to relay that information to Birch, they seemed to be satisfied and happy that a 1 year extension would be fine for them. So I have not, that only just came through on, I believe it was Friday, just last week. And so I have not had a chance to update the lease yet with that in there, but that's how the lease will be updated. And then we will also include in the agreement to lease that there would be a provision for Birch to have access to the remainder Lot 3 for septic purposes in the same way that the health center has that same agreement. And so it would just mirror the exact same agreement that we have with the health center. And there may be an opportunity to just expand upon the health center's septic field if the Birch project were to all of a sudden gain traction quickly and move ahead. So what we're doing tonight is seeking direction to basically execute that extension of that agreement to lease.
Okay, thank you, Liam. Pretty straightforward. Does anybody got any questions? Allison?
The motion as it's written doesn't make sense. What it's referring to as included in the September 26th council agenda, and what's included in the agenda was the actual original agreement to lease. So I don't see the link here. So the words as included in the September 26th 2022 council agenda needs to be removed. So it should just read the council directs staff to prepare and execute an amendment agreement to the agreement to lease between Bowen municipality and Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Allison.
So I'm happy to move it.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Maureen's got her hand up too, so that's.
Yeah, Maureen. Well, she's.
Oh, that was a vote in favor.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Liam. And on the staff reports, development variance permit application. DVP 2022-0247, 1455 Tunstall Boulevard, Juan Ramos. And over to you, Daniel Martin, Manager of Planning and Development.
Thank you, Mayor Ander. So I'm here again tonight, this time to introduce a DVP application on Tunstall Boulevard. So the site is located near the top of Tunstall Boulevard, so between the intersection of Adams Road and Whitesell Drive. For the neighborhood, it's a fairly small site, so on Google Map we show it at just over 1,000 square meters, but the survey from the applicant is at just below 1,000 square meters. It's currently a vacant lot. And it's in the settlement residential 2 zone. So relevant for this variance, it has a front setback of 7.5 meters and a highway setback of 4.6 meters. And then especially relevant for this application is that it is crossed by a number of, or impacted by the setback from a number of streams. So the shading in blue shows a 30-meter setback from our map stream. So our property is within those setbacks. And relevant for this application is both of the streams shown there, and in fact the third stream that I'll cover are designated as riparian area applicable, so they're tributary to the sharing streams. And the riparian area protection regulation has a section on undue hardship. So normally the regulations say that you can't develop, that no development is permitted within the SPIA, which is the stream side protection enhancement area. But the regulation has this clause or this section on undue hardship. So it says the site is subject to undue hardship if the site was created by subdivision in accordance with laws in effect. So the idea being that currently we will not subdivide a lot that exists entirely within the SPIA, that subdivision won't be permitted, but this lot was created in 1970, so prior to wrapper regulations being in effect. And that if the developer has sought and received a decision on every variance that would reduce the restricted area of the site. So the goal from that is that the encouragement is for applicants to seek variances on setbacks from lot lines to expand setbacks from riparian areas. And then finally, it has a calculation on then if you receive an undue hardship provision, what's the maximum area of the site that you can disturb? And so in this case, the maximum of 30% would be the maximum allowable disturbance would be permitted under the wrapper regulation. And I'll just note here, this is from the applications. The application is for about 18.6% of the area to be disturbed, and that includes the excavation area, so area around the house, so not just the finished developed area, but what you'd have to disturb as part of the so the variance requested is to reduce the front setback and the highway setback from 7.5 meters and 4.6 down to 3.51 meters from Kingston Boulevard. So essentially trying to pull the house as far forward on the site as possible. And all the disturbance with it. So nowhere to be site the house further back, then the driveway is going to extend longer and be a larger area of disturbance. So what they've done is the applicant has actually purchased a heritage house in Vancouver that they're looking to relocate to Kingston Boulevard. The house has a 450 square foot footprint, so quite a reduced footprint. And what the application tries to do is to place the house on top of a garage at the bottom. So essentially trying to reduce even more the parking area to be under the house, so to make that area of disturbance as small as possible. This is just showing the house from the street, so story house fit within our height limits. And then this is the view from the north elevation, so the neighbor on that side. But it is outside of the side. So these show up a little hard, but essentially showing the various SPIAs for the property. So the front lot line is within the SPIA for the essentially the drainage along the road is a map stream under wrapper regulations. So it has a 10-meter SPIA from that stream. It has this stream number 2 that goes throughout, where the SPIA is the majority of the site itself. And then a stream 3 where again the back.
That's the green hatched area.
Yeah, the green hatched area. It doesn't show very well on the PowerPoint from here, but yeah, that's essentially it. And then finally, there's a 15-meter setback for septic fields from the streams property. And so what's listed in the application is the applicant is actually submitted to relocate stream 2 back into stream 3. So stream 2, when you're on site, at some point there was a diversion in stream 3. So commonly that's like a log has come down and caused it to fork. And they have submitted to the provincial authorities to re-divert stream 2 back into stream 3. And that application is in hand. And
you mean underway or approved?
Yeah, it's underway. Sorry, yes, the application and not the permission. Yes. And so that is specifically in terms of setbacks from the septic field. So as you can see, the entire lot is within 15 meters of a stream. So the recommendation, and this is again just the synthesized version that's in the report, but that notice be given at the October 24th meeting, and staff give notice, or staff authorize council authorize staff to give notice further.
All right, thank you, Daniel. That stream 2 that they're putting back into stream 3 was not natural, was it? That's sort of what I read in the report, is it started because of the tree down there or something.
That's the assumption from the environmental report, like, and that's why, like, on our bowl map, we don't show that.
Oh, okay.
That other stream, right? It shows that stream 3 essentially crossing the property, and then at some point since then, it's obviously split.
Yeah.
And it's taught by essentially the QEP on site, saying this is an additional area on the property beyond what our map shows.
Where does stream 2, does it run? It looks like it runs down onto the next property and then back into stream 3, because the bridge has been truncated.
Yeah. The stream 2 essentially joins stream 1, so the roadside along the roadside edge.
Oh, okay, I'm looking at the green picture, figure 4, so it doesn't, it's just stream, okay, I've got to look at
Where
one.
stream 3 then comes down a slightly further down.
Stream 3 has a work in.
Yeah, down at the bottom here, yeah. Anyway, I think they've done an amazing job on a really small piece of property to get some housing in there. How many square feet is that house?
So it has a 450 square foot footprint.
Yeah, it's 2 stories, so it's 900.
Yeah, and then there's about 180 square feet of deck.
Yeah, and a garage.
And a garage underneath.
Yeah, I think they've done a marvelous job. David.
Yeah, thanks.
Maureen, I've got you.
Gary. Yeah, they've done a remarkable job, and it's a very small little house, so it's good. In terms of the front setback, normally we sort of have a comparison to the setbacks of adjoining properties. I mean, is this going to stick way out, or how does it look from the street perspective?
Right. I mean, I do know, so the neighbor to the north recently did, and they're probably at the setback line, doing some 5 meters. You're right, I don't have that.
There's 10 feet difference.
Yeah.
So we'll be asking the neighbors.
Yeah, this doesn't.
Right, so the neighbors would be, yeah.
That's part of the purpose, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's all we're doing is pushing it forward.
Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Maureen?
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the heritage aspect of this, Daniel. Could you say a little bit more about the house itself?
I don't know many details. It was purchased by or provided from a company called Nickel Brothers, who are currently storing the house. So I think it was essentially a development site in Vancouver, where the house was to be demolished or relocated. And then it will be, so the owner purchased it to relocate it to this site.
To bring it on a barge?
They would be.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Maureen. So the recommendation is council direct staff to prepare and execute amendments, an amendment agreement to the agreement to lease. Now we're going to change it. Oh, where am I? We're down to the next one. Oh, yes.
2022-0247 for the variance of reduction. I think there's a word missing there.
Yeah.
Of the front yard and highway setback for 1455 Tunstall Boulevard, legally described as lot 128, blocks B, E, and F. District lot 492, plan 13-688, PID 008-040-0656 at the October 24th, 22 meeting of council. And the council authorized staff to give notice for the consideration of the issuance of development variance permit DVP 2022-0247 in accordance with section 499 of the Local Government Act to all properties within 100 meters of the legal boundary of 1455 Tunstall Boulevard, legally described as lot 128, blocks B, E, and F, district lot 492, plan 13-685, PID 008-040-656.
Further discussion? Okay, last question on it's unanimous. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the Bowman Cider House Lounge Area endorsement application. Natasha Chong, Island Community Planner. Natasha, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Ander and Council. I will just share my screen here. All right, everyone can see and hear me okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Great. So as mentioned, I'm here to introduce a liquor license referral and more specifically, a lounge endorsement application for Bowen Cider House. Now, before I go through the application, I'll present a little bit of the background on Bowen Cider House to help contextualize and provide you with a basic understanding of the lounge endorsement request. So the Bowen Cider House is located at 1125 Grafton Road, which is essentially where Adams Road and Cowan Road intersects to become Grafton Road, pardon me. And hence it's pretty centrally located on island. And then for further reference, it's a few parcels west, approximately 400 meters from the building center. Now, Bowen Cider House is locally zoned as Rural Commercial 1 as per our land use bylaw. However, also lies within the provincially designated agricultural land reserve. The lot is relatively large. It's approximately 2.6 hectares and is also home to Meadowbrook Market. I will note that within Bowen Island municipality zoning, cidery is not a permitted use, but given it's located in the ALR, cidery use is actually a permitted farm use. And in light of this, a cidery is permitted on the property of 1125 Grafton Road. So on to the application. At this time, the cidery has a manufacturing license, and as part of this license, which allows them to make the cider on premise, they are also eligible to apply for a lounge endorsement. That said, the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Board, the LCRB, requires local government approval of these applications. For further context, I'll mention that a business license has already been issued for the cidery, and they've also received or been issued a picnic area endorsement from the LCRB, which does not require local government approvals. Now, given BIM does not have a formalized liquor referral policy, staff are recommending we issue public notice in line with the cannabis licensing referral policy number 21-04, which directs staff to consult with property owners within 100 meters of the cidery, along with the community at large through communication channels such as the undercurrent and our website. Okay, so some of you may be wondering, what exactly do we mean by lounge? Our land use bylaw does not actually have any corresponding regulations or does not explicitly define a lounge. And in light of this, we're advising to utilize the lounge definition by the LCRB manufacturer's terms and conditions handbook, which is defined as an indoor lounge area and or an outdoor patio on the site of the manufacturing facility where a manufacturer may sell and serve liquor by the glass. It's also very important to note the only current regulation associated with the cidery's lounge pertains to its size as per the ALR use regulations, which states that the cidery can operate both an indoor and outdoor lounge. However, neither can exceed a size of 125 square meters. So as per the application, a floor plan is required, and we received drawings with the dimensions of both the indoor and outdoor lounge, which both will be under 125 square meters, which, as you can see, are highlighted in yellow. A site visit was conducted back in July, and here are some site photos of both the proposed outdoor lounge and the indoor lounge area. So moving on to some of the details of the application. The applicants are requesting an occupancy of 98 people for the indoor lounge and an outdoor occupancy of 167 people for the outdoor lounge. So this occupancy load was determined by a registered architect, and the building analysis was submitted with the application. They are also requesting hours of operation to be from noon to midnight, 7 days a week.
Got 9 AM on there. Monday to Sunday, 9 AM to midnight.
9 AM, sorry. Yeah,
No problem.
thank you for that correction. So now in terms of the review and referral evaluation process, as I mentioned before, our land use bylaw does not regulate lounges, for example, their capacity, size, or hours. And as such, staff advise reviewing the following to ensure that the scale of the cidery lounge adheres to our OCP and our land use bylaw prior to submitting an approval to the LCRB. So first, as mentioned, we're advising that we gather public input from the community. And then second, we should be considering the location of the establishment, the person capacity, and the hours of liquor service of the establishment. And then finally, consider things like impact of noise and view on nearby residents and the community at large. Now, I will note, BIM cannot prohibit the lounge areas given its location in the ALR. However, the cidery use can be subjected to conditions, thresholds, or other requirements, which can be part of the feedback process to the LCRB. So to conclude, the Bowen Cider House has applied for a lounge endorsement area application as part of their manufacturing license. And prior to the LCRB issuing the endorsement, we must first go through the local government approval. So to do so, we are therefore recommending that notice be given that council will be considering a liquor license referral for Bowen Cider House at 1125 Grafton Road at the October 24th council meeting. And we are also recommending that council authorize staff to give public notice for the consideration of approval of the liquor license referral application for Bowen Cider House in accordance to the Liquor and Control Licensing Act to all properties within 100 meters of Bowen Cider House. And so I will now take questions or comments from council. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Natasha. Great job. Okay, so.
Thank you. I appreciate the details. My question is, because this is in a rural place with dwellings and yoga retreats and things sort of spread out, I'm not sure those would all fall within the 100 meters, and I'm wondering whether we could make it bigger, like within 300, 500, I don't know what it should be.
I mean, as council.
An approval of 500, okay. I don't have a good distant sense of, sorry, we've gone from square feet in the previous applications. And I'm afraid my measurements are not
3.
Yeah, anyway, so what should it be? I'm not sure, but it should be bigger. I wouldn't want there to be hardly anybody in the 100 meters, and we've only asked a couple of people, whereas this could also be a place where there could be weddings, for example.
Yeah.
Especially with the numbers of people that I see could be accommodated at the site. And I don't think, I'm not against that. I just think we should let the neighbors know who might be affected by this if there's noise, for example, because it could be indoor or outdoor. And my question, I guess, for the planner is, I assume that the regular noise bylaw would apply, and if they wanted to have some big event, they would have to ask council for an exemption?
Yeah. That's
okay. Thank you. So what should I propose 300 meters.
I just wanted to ask, looking at the map, 100 meters would pick up.
Can you put the ortho on?
All, or the map, I guess, that's got the. Yeah, or the one that had the streets, I think that'd be easier. The next one, maybe? Yeah. So does 100 meters take you into that second house on Adams Road, or, I mean, how far is it? That's, the 100 meters would clearly pick up Nectar and the Canada property across the street, and probably the place with the.
I would have to do the calculations, but sorry, go ahead, Liam.
Oh, as I measure it, it's 100 meters is sort of just short of Nectar Yoga.
So it would not pick up Nectar Yoga. It would not, according to Daniel. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so the 100 meters, yeah, because Nectar's not the one on the corner, so. Yeah. And then how far up the hill would it go? Probably just to those.
The 100 meters actually doesn't go very far, like people were implying it. That first house at 603, it would capture that, but then nothing above it. And it wouldn't go so far as even to 1161. It might just squeak in there. So 300 meters would provide a much better, better range.
Yeah, because the property is up the hill, noise sound rises, so. You
Okay, so settle on 300 meter.
I'm finished. I proposed 300 meters. Yeah, I see Maureen's got her hand up and David.
I've got a couple more questions.
Oh, okay.
So I'm.
Okay, sorry, Maureen, I'll just finish.
On the capacity, my understanding was that the capacity load was determined by the fire department, not the architect.
CLR, I think, or the liquor board.
No, well, past experience.
That's the planner.
Yeah, the fire department has to, I think.
Yes.
An occupancy load.
So as part of the reviews process, the fire department did review, and there were a couple conditions associated with the application, but none were pertaining to the occupancy load. So they would have.
They're okay with that occupancy.
They would have approved it, yeah.
Okay, that was.
Okay, Maureen.
Me next. I was curious if planning could recall how broadly we consulted on the Riley's cidery. Does anyone recall?
Daniel, you can maybe chime in, but I think as a temporary use permit, it would have been 100 meters as well, but it could have been more.
I think it was more because of the
remoteness of the other property.
End of the road.
It was expanded, but yeah, it was expanded.
300.
Okay.
Okay. Just a comment on a couple of the points in the background here. The parking, 3 required parking spots seems, I guess this feedback will come back to you, but that seems ridiculously low given the capacity and given the location of this. Did you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, these are feedback and comments we can bring back to the applicant. As per the zoning, that was the calculation that's required. But if council does feel there needs to be more parking to correlate with the capacity, that's definitely something you can move forward with and request.
And the excerpt that I sent to you earlier on about the occupancy, where 400 odd people were identified as the total occupancy load, 459. That is not what they're actually requesting. They're requesting something significantly lower than that.
Yeah, so that would have been for the entire building. There are 2 floors, and each like the indoor lounge area is the assembly area, and so that's just pertaining to the application, the 98, I think, people.
Okay, thank you, Natasha.
May I?
Yeah, I think there's quite a bit of parking there. Michael and then back to David.
Natasha, with the hours of operation, 9 to midnight, how does that compare with comparable operations here on the island?
I would have to look into that, and Daniel, feel free to chime in. However, I think that's later than most of the commercial businesses in the Snug Cove area. In comparison, I believe the cidery, so Riley Cidery is somewhere in the afternoon to early evenings when they close.
Yeah, Riley's cidery, the TUP restricts it to 11 a.m. to 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
And the pub
They don't have-
closes
They
at,
don't have a lounge license or anything either. So that's totally different.
No, that's one thing I was trying to look for was, and I realized I appreciate your difficulties because you've got some in the code. This is kind of really out of the code, very rural.
Mhm.
I wondered whether we could get a little bit of consistency. Just it seemed to me to be late, whereas let's suppose it wasn't quite as permissive as this, and then they would apply for a license of some sort. So I just raise that, not to be argumentative, but it just does seem late. The other question I raise is there not when I say a formula, is there not a standard which says if you have a lounge or you have any business of this square footage or over this occupancy, that the car parking space has to be able to accommodate a certain amount of vehicles?
She did that.
I didn't quite get from your answer that, I mean, obviously 3 makes no sense, but is there a standard that you can apply to this based on size?
The standard would be within the land use bylaw, so it fluctuates depending or changes depending on the zoning.
So that is as per the land use bylaw, that is.
Yeah.
That is what's required. Is that true, Natasha?
Yeah, within the land use bylaw.
It's quite a big parking lot.
Oh, it is a big parking lot. And I mean, obviously, for them to do business, they're going to have to provide a great deal more parking than through car. So those are my questions, because when other applications come up, car parking and also the hours of operation. That's you're saying alcohol there till midnight?
11 o'clock.
No,
Midnight.
Was it midnight?
It's midnight. They're requesting till midnight.
and just for clarity, the pub is open till 11 at the latest nights. And they're open, I believe, the latest out of any establishment. Everybody else closes earlier, like 7 p.m. or 10 or 8.
Okay. And go see Lauren and then
Okay, thank you.
Did I get you? Great.
I'm just thinking that I'm trying to remember what the hours of the distillery are, because that seems to me to be a similar kind of.
They're open from 12 till 7 p.m.
Thank you. Okay, 12 till 7.
Yeah, noon until 7.
Yeah, and they're
And on Sunday they close at 5.
Okay, thank you. It seems to me also that those hours are really long, and they're sort of right on the road at that bendy corner.
Yeah.
Which I can't help but think about. I also think about where will the multi-use pathway run, and could we talk about a bike parking or a bike rack instead of, like, what does the policy say about a bike rack in place of a?
Yep, there's something.
A question. Yeah.
There is something in the land use bylaw that states in lieu of parking, you can have a bicycle parking.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to, so there's nothing that requires them to have bicycle parking if they have those 3 spaces, but
I don't believe so.
Okay, at this time. Yeah. Thank you. I imagine when the bike path gets there, and maybe before they might be, some of their customers will want to come that way. I was just wanted to be clear about the rules. Thank you. I think that timing is a little long, and I would be inclined to, rather than the pub, which has more sort of robust, I don't know, I think kind of following the distillery kind of approach might be a good idea, but we can leave that until we've heard from the public.
Well, I think that's a good idea also. The distillery only has a tasting licensing. That's all they've got. And that's usually the hours for a tasting operation, 7 o'clock. But this is
how is different from a tasting operation? I guess that's my question.
well, a tasting operation is you can just go and you can try their alcohol there, and you can buy a bottle. And
okay.
So there's no sit down. There's no, you have to stand there.
Not a lounge.
It's not a lounge.
Yeah.
These and
No.
I think David had his hand up.
David.
That last story.
Sorry.
Oh, I was going to ask the question about the. You've answered it. Midnight seems kind of late, but I mean, to me, the worry is the outdoor patio, because that would be noise, and there's house just across the street, basically. So I would, you know, if they want to stay open till midnight, okay, I'd rather it be 11, but I don't know why. I don't particularly have any reason for that, but I certainly would like the outdoors to be done by maximum 9, something like that, because it'll be noisy.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously we can look at that at this point in time. To Sue Ellen's point, let's just get this out to the public, and we'll see what bounces back, and then we can make a decision between that time. I agree with you.
My question, and I'm sorry, Natasha, if I missed it in the report. Is there a description of what the LRCB or whatever they're called these days requires for a lounge application? Seems to me they can't. Is a lounge just serving alcohol, or is there food too?
There's food as well.
Okay, so that might be something that needs to be clarified with the notice.
Sure.
Yeah, that because I'm remembering with past experience of there had to be some sort of more than just bags of potato chips for food. Okay. Yeah, we're just reading notice, so I'm interested in hearing what the public has to say.
The recommendation is a notice be given council will be considering liquor license referral lounge endorsement area. All Cider House at 1125 Grafton Road, legally lot 1 of lot D, district lot 13.9, plan 1511 at the October 24th meeting of council. And that can authorize staff to give public notice for the consideration of approval liquor license referral lounge endorsement area. Application for Bull and Cider House in accordance with the Liquor Control and Licensing Act to all properties within 300 meters of the legal boundary of 1125 Grafton Road, legally described as lot 1, lot D, district lot 492, plan 2250, PID 009375627. I'll move that. Thank you, Rob. And further discussion. I see you got your hand up, Maureen.
Yeah, I wonder if we could work into the recommendation, just as a note that it's part of the agricultural land reserve. In part because that sort of underscores that there is authority for the application that is external to council. And what I might suggest is just after 1125 Grafton Road, adding a property within the agricultural land reserve, comma, and then carrying on.
Okay.
I like that.
Did you get that, Sophie?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so is everybody in favor of that amendment? Thank you. Any further discussion? I will ask the question. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. That is unanimous. Right. Move on to development variance permit application DVP 2021-0386 221 David Road, and back to Natasha.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Ander. Today, we're actually requesting and recommending that this application's consideration be deferred to the October 11th council meeting, as we're still actively working with the applicant and property owners to formalize an encroachment agreement.
Perfect. And the recommendation is a council defer consideration development variance permit DVP 2021-0386 to its October 11th, 2022 regular council meeting. On with that, Rob second. Any further discussion? Okay, that's a question. All in favor? Thank you very much, Maureen. Perfect. And I guess that's it. Thank you, Natasha.
Goodbye.
It's already gone.
No, thank you.
We're going to move on to correspondence. Bruce Simons, President of House Sound Bites for Region Initiative Society. Oh, geez, don't even get me started. Unity Plan Discussion Paper Request for Review dated August 15th, 2022. Anybody want to take the lead on this? Okay, so I'll go ahead.
Sure, I just wanted to say I'm in support of this. I'll note that since we received this letter August 15th, there've been at least one change, and that is that the October 1st date at Glen Eagles has been changed or canceled. I think she didn't have enough people that could come at that time because it's campaign period and whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's gone, but otherwise, I'm in support. It's we've already, as council, assigned or appointed, whatever the word is, Bonnie Brokenshire to be staff support for this. And I like the idea of staff having input through that, through Bonnie into the agreement and into the process going forward, the feedback that they're asking for. So I'd be happy to move the motion.
Sure, go ahead and just quick, go ahead.
We don't want. They're asking for, I guess, council input or staff, so.
Well, I'm just saying anybody that's got input, they can talk to Bonnie.
Want to provide input, we can provide. I'm just wondering about council seeing the final product, the report before it goes in.
Come to council, yeah.
So, well, we haven't asked that. We have said that review the discussion paper and submit feedback to House Sound Breed before.
I'd be very surprised if they didn't send finished report back.
Well, yes, but without it coming to council first.
Yeah.
Comment. It's just would go straight from staff to the House Sound.
Yeah.
Biosphere.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is if anybody wants somebody to talk to Bonnie.
Yeah.
If they've got concerns and want some input in that.
Yeah, I was just saying, just. We would, and then a copy be provided to council, maybe that's.
Sure.
And then copy be provided to council?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll move that
Yeah.
council receive for information the letter from the House Sound Biosphere Region Initiative Society dated August 15th, 2022, and that council direct staff to review the 13-page discussion paper and to submit feedback to HSBRIS before October 31st, 2022, and that a copy of the feedback be
and then a copy be provided to council.
Be provided to council. Thank you.
Okay.
I move that.
I will second that. Further discussion? Seeing none. I'll ask the question on favor. Right. All right, very good. We'll move down to new business, and 11.1 is mutual aid agreement with Metro Vancouver, and that's back to Liam Edwards, Chief Administration Officer. It's an easy one, eh?
Thank you, Mayor. So I don't have a staff report to accompany this. I apologize for that, but it's a fairly straightforward agreement that's been developed by Metro Vancouver with all of the member municipalities in the region that looks to provide mutual aid to any member municipality that requests it in the event of an emergency. And it's a pretty straightforward agreement. Any member that signs onto the agreement can reach out and request aid. And ideally, the first adjoining member municipality would be the first to come to that aid. However, it's not limited to that, so you could reach further afield. So for us, that would normally be West Vancouver, but we may need to reach further to North Vancouver or something like that. And the agreement lays out all of the sort of protocols of how that aid would transpire, and in particular, the recovery of finances should you provide aid or should someone provide aid to you. And it's all pretty straightforward, and it also covers the limited liability of our staff, for example, if they were providing aid to another member municipality. So far, 17 of the municipalities have signed on, and so if we sign on, that would be 8. We would make it 18, and so almost all of the members. I don't know which members have not actually signed, and I in review of it, I don't see any reason why we would not want to sign. And we currently have some informal arrangements like this with North Shore Search and Rescue and other services like that. So this would further bolster the support from our neighbors if we ever needed it.
Thank you. Okay, Allison and then Sue Ellen.
Oh, I was just curious, was everybody a signatory to the 2000 agreement? Were we a signatory to that?
That's a good question. I don't know
I
the
don't
answer to.
have any recollections. I just wondered. It said attachment 2. I don't know, was attachment 2 attached? And then I was curious, the letter was sent to us back in
March.
March.
Yeah. And it was only yeah, I must have missed it because it was then brought to my attention more recently, as they're hoping to try to get as many members signed by the end of September. And so I had completely missed that. And so I'm glad that they brought it back to our attention. It's not that we couldn't have joined after September 30th if we choose not to join at this point in time, but
I think it's a big win for us to have that, the big brother over there.
Doesn't look like we signed on to the first one.
Okay, you done, Allison? Thank you, Sue.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in support of this. I'm looking particularly at item D, ABC D, and I can't tell what page it's in because they're written over there, but one of the whereas is where it talks about a major emergency affecting one or more of the local authorities. And so that's, to me, part of our emergency plan, emergency program plan, whatever it is. And we could have looked at this at the emergency program executive committee or whatever, but there's a couple of us here, Councillor Morris and I are on that committee, and I think this fits very well within that being prepared for big emergencies like
Fire,
whatever, fires, floods, marine accidents, earthquakes, those kinds of things. So I'm in favor, and I'd be happy to make a motion.
Please do.
That council authorize the mayor and corporate officer to enter into the Regional Public Works Mutual Aid Agreement as included in the September 26, 2022 council agenda.
If it's got a second, any further discussion?
Yes, Liam, could I just ask, please, is this offering us help that we might not have had before, or is this more exactly laying out the proper terms and conditions under which this help would be offered, recompensed, etc., etc.? But is it enlarging the scope of the help, which we wouldn't have had prior to this document?
It more so formalizes it in a way that if we request help, there's a sense of obligation to receive help. Whereas before, we would request help and there was no agreement that we were a party to. So
thank you. Thank you very much. That's great. And I'm really pleased because it lays everything out very, very neatly in exasperating detail.
Further discussion? Okay, that's question on the paper. Thank you. Unanimously. That's a great move. And 11.2 is a CAO update. Liam Edwards. And it's an update to council read the development permit 2021-0071 Coast Guard. Go ahead, Liam.
Thank you, Mayor. So this project has been in the works for quite a while, and I thank Daniel Martin for putting together a staff report. I just want to be clear right up front that this project is a development permit request, and it falls within the scope of the normal bounds of the property which they're requesting the development permit for. And typically development permits do not come to council. I approved development permits with the assistance of Daniel and his team, preparing information to consider the approvals. And most of the development permits are pretty straightforward. They might be, developing or building a shed or something like that on a property, and it's all within the regulatory requirements as set out in our land use bylaw and such, and there's no variances required or anything like that. This is in that similar vein in that there's no variances required. There's no real council approval required here. So I'm just bringing it forward though to council for information to make council aware of it because of the significance and the magnitude of it, and trying to make sure that it squarely gets out into the public realm. And so this application is to clear cut an area of about 6 hectares on Radar Hill to improve the service of the radar tower on Radar Hill for the Coast Guard that operates the radar tower. The radar tower was established in the 70s on Radar Hill. And at that time, the area was clear cut, which gave them quite a extensive scope or line of sight for the radar that provides marine traffic safety for shipping traffic and primarily for large ships, as well as it provides advanced warning of threats to those large ships like ferries and other large vessels that would be entering Vancouver Harbor, English Bay, that go to anchor there. Obviously, over the last 50 years since it was clear cut, the trees have grown up quite significantly and has dramatically impeded the line of sight of the radar. And so the Coast Guard has been looking at how do they improve their line of sight of the radar such that they can provide adequate safety to the marine shipping and traffic. We're not alone in this project. They're doing similar projects like this up and down the coast at a lot, if not all of their radar stations. I think they must have all be on the same sort of 50-year timeline where they're coming back and doing some forestry work to improve the sight lines and safety for the marine traffic. We engaged with them quite heavily about alternatives to clear cutting. We wanted to see that they had explored a variety of different options. We asked them to look at extending the height of the tower, and we were informed that they did look at that, but that there's limitations from a technological standpoint, that the higher the tower is, the more difficult or inadequate the signal becomes from the radar itself. I don't understand the technical elements of that, and that it would just simply defer the need to cut the trees for another perhaps decade or so. We did also inquire about selective cutting and tree topping, and that they believe to be quite difficult and problematic. And again, it's only a deferral of about a decade or so before they'd have to be coming back and doing it again. And so after a lot of back and forth with them, they continue to land on this as the minimum, the maximum extent of which they would need to clear. They have pulled back in some areas, especially along the southern boundary where it lines up against private property holdings. So they're making sure that they've got more than adequate setbacks from that property line. And that maybe what I'll do, just so that we can all pull this up onto the screen.
So I've been asleep here. I probably should recuse myself since it's private property line is our common Strata's common property.
Right. Thank you, Allison.
Meant to do that.
Okay, so I guess I should take a pause here and just ask if everybody knows this location that we're speaking about, where Radar Hill is. Does anybody not know where it is?
You haven't got it on a bigger map.
Oh, you already do? Oh,
No, I say you don't have it on a bigger map? Does
here.
everybody know where the gravel pit is?
Yep.
Oh, okay, that's good. We got the gravel pit on there. That's fine.
Okay, so this one is thinking now. So this is Josephine Lake here, and this is the gravel pit.
Yeah.
And these are multiple towers. I believe there's 5 of them up there between radio towers, communication towers, and the radar tower is this one right here with this cleared area. There's a helipad there, which this little zone right here. If you haven't been, it's really quite a stunning view and easy to get to. Just coming back to that other document, this document here. So this is a zoomed in map of the area. This square that is colored kind of a pink color is the actual land in which the radar tower and the helipad is situated. And the yellow triangle is the clear cut that they intend to cut. You can see there's these little polygons where at the southern end, that's as well as at the eastern end, where they have identified more sensitive areas that they are not going to clear cut. And so it's not a perfect triangle. This was that southern extent, which they are leaving a large buffer against this private property boundary. This polygon is being left because of a sensitive area with a creek there. The red line down the middle is the power line that actually traverses over Radar Hill and down to the Fairweather community. And it also serves other properties along the shoreline, our Butis lane in that neighborhood as well. So the very short portion that the power poles are running through this polygon, they'll benefit from reduced possible tree strikes on the power poles. So it also needs to be noted that this is a federal asset that is on provincial crown land, and neither agency requires municipal approvals. And so they have said that they want to adhere to our development policies and bylaws. And so they've gone through their development plan approval process, and they've basically followed everything that we've asked them to do. But ultimately, if we were to say no, they would turn around and simply do it anyway. So I think I'll pause there and open it up for questions, and also just let you know as well that we're not making a decision tomorrow on this, but we will be making a decision in the coming weeks. There's a desire for them to advance the project before the heavy winter rains set in, because the local forester from On Bowen that they've been working with has identified that there'll be less disturbance to the site if they're able to do it while the ground is still relatively dry. And actually, one other piece before I open it up for questions, the logs that'll be removed from site will be taken to a local sawmill in Squamish, and that actually benefits the project and Bowen in a way that enables them to use local contractors. If they can keep the cost of the project below a certain threshold, then their Treasury Board doesn't require them to open the project up to a full public tender process, and they can direct award to local contractors, which they'd like to try to do. So I'll stop there and open it up for questions.
Hey, Liam, I think, the important parts of this is that they're going to do it anyway. I think from what I understand, it's probably going to be somewhere in the area of 50 logging vehicles, 50 trucks going out full logs. And I think that's one consideration, if we can work with them on that and try to, just alleviate the pressure on the ferries. going off the island, so if they could do it sort of mid-morning, that sort of thing would be better.
Yeah.
I can't, what's the duration? What are they saying for how long it's going to take?
I didn't actually get a duration of how long it would take them to clear it.
Okay.
Maureen's
All
got
right.
her hand up too.
Yeah, I see that. Maureen, we'll go to you this time and then Rob.
Liam, could you show the map that presents the impact of the removal of these trees? Because I think it's really quite dramatic, the improvement in terms of the radar performance.
Yes, yeah, I'm just looking for it here.
That's the one. That's a good one there.
There we go. So this is a image from the site present day, and the red line is showing effectively the shoreline, and so any of the trees that are exceeding above the red line will be cut. You can see Vancouver in the distance here, and so you can see where the large ships that come into the harbor are starting to be obscured by the trees for the radar. This is the map, the nautical map that shows where the radar tower is, and it's showing the current extent and coverage of the radar in the pink. The pink dotted line is the shipping channel that the ferry uses, and so they're really concerned about the small vessels that are closer to shore that pose potential threats to larger vessels because they can't see them on the radar. And I think a vessel has to be 60 feet in length or greater, or maybe it's meters, for it to be on what they call AIS, which is an automated system. And so the small vessels aren't on the automated system. This is the coverage that they're looking to secure and that they will achieve with the cut project that they're proposing. So that'll provide them much greater security and coverage for that channel.
Okay. Mr. Andrew?
You want to try to set a theme there?
I can't figure out how to stop sharing this now. Sophie, you might have to help me out. Oh, it's over on this screen over here. Okay.
We can see you when you're waiting for it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
Yes.
so if there aren't any other questions, we'll leave it at that.
Rob.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to say I've been expecting this. I think every 10 years or so we get rumblings that it might happen, or I do maybe because parks, trails, and greenways have been alerted or staff. Anyway, I know I've heard about this other years, and it's time for it to happen because, as you mentioned, the heavy winter rains is also when we get more extreme winter storms that happen now. And I think I would feel more secure about Bowen's shorelines being safe as well as shipping because of the bigger winter storms, the more extreme weather, the fact that our recently adopted hazards and vulnerabilities assessment through the emergency program, one of the eight priority risks is marine accidents. And I don't want an oil spill on our shoreline, let alone anybody to be hurt. And with LNG tankers being proposed to go down the sound and other kinds of issues, I was glad to see. I'm glad to see this actually, and I think it's a trade-off of safety with the trees that have been growing up there since Radar Hill equipment was set in place. And I'm also glad to see that they're talking about removing or minimizing the slash and debris that's left behind, which could be a fire risk. So I was glad to read that in the report. Thank you. And thanks for bringing it to our attention so we can answer questions too.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Rob?
Yeah, Liam, quick question. Does the provincial or federal government do any kind of outreach to the public? Like, if the public had wanted to comment on this, is there an avenue for them to do this? Or is there no avenue for that?
I mean, any entity always has the opportunity for that if they choose, but it's not a requirement. And so I mean, they're doing these projects all up and down the coast, so I don't think they're
not asking.
Yeah, I think Daniel had his hand.
They're doing it through us. I'm just gonna say a condition of their approval was a requirement to consult with the other tenure holders on Radar Hill, which they've done. So the other telecommunication towers and Twin Island, I got the meeting with the gravel operation, which is the requirement for consultation there.
I guess my only concern is going to be if we have 50 trucks loaded with logs going off the island and nobody knows what's going on. That's going to create,
Right.
that can create some issues. So I don't even know if it's possible that they can put something in the undercurrent, letting people know, hey, this is what the federal government's doing, or whoever the body is. It sounds like it's federal right now, instead of, because it's going to come back on us, like, what's going on? Why didn't you have input?
Right. It's a good point, Rob. I'm not sure that the volume will be so great that it would be something that was uncommon to Bowen. I mean, more recently, phase 2 of the Grafton Lake lands cleared a site that's much larger than this. And, I have not heard any complaints at all about the logging trucks leaving the island for that.
Might be one truck a day, maybe. Yeah.
I suggest we leave it to staff. I mean, Sophie's here, she's our information person. And Liam, between staff, they can figure out whether they think we need to be proactive about it, but otherwise it's public business. We're discussing it in a public setting, and we can refer people to the report and the video and that kind of thing.
And to that point, Sophie has done up a really good Q&A on this. And so we are going to have that information available on our website. So
okay,
great.
Okay. So the recommendation is that council receive for information the report dated September 21, 2022 from the manager of planning and development to the chief administration officer regarding development permit DP 2021-0071 included in the September 26, 2022 agenda. Yes, that's it. Yeah, thank you. All in favor?
Wait. I just wanted to say, I'm really glad that staff are involved this time, and thank you for your report, Daniel. Then we've got something that actually brings the Bowen planning, and that you got the edges pulled back, and the fine tuning. Thank you very much.
Although we have no authority.
And I'm really appreciative.
Yeah, they asked us, which is good.
Yeah.
Is Allison like it's not going to make it back anyway? I'll ask a question. All in favor? Okay, we got her. Unless okay, so we're now going to move on to the update.
Mr. Mayor, I have two other items for my CAO update I'd like to share.
Okay,
That's
go
okay.
ahead.
They're just not on there. And so one is just a quick status update on my hip. And so thank you for entertaining me via Zoom. And I think with the way it's going, I'll probably be working from home for the next 2 weeks. And see how that goes. And so I may or may not be at the next council meeting in person, but I'll keep you posted on that. But thank you for
thank you very much. Take all the time you need. You're not that far away.
Yeah. And then the other is that there was an earlier topic where we talked about Bonnie Brokenshire. And so I have some exciting but sad news about Bonnie. And that's that Bonnie, after her, I believe, 11 years with the municipality, has decided to accept a position with the city of Vancouver, helping lead some of their environmental work in the Southeast Falls Creek neighborhood. which is a really exciting opportunity for her. It's focused on the harbor cleanup work that they're trying to do there. And I think some of her work that she's done here around with derelict vessels in Manion Bay in particular was seen to be quite forward and progressive, and they looked to that as a tremendous asset that they're hoping to help with their challenges. Bonnie did share with me that when she went and had a look at their derelict vessel issue, it makes our situation seem minor in comparison. It's exciting and amazing for Bonnie because it'll be a really ambitious file for her to sink her environmental teeth into. But it's sad for us because she serves us so well on 3 different files. So that's work with the environment file. She effectively, created the environment department within the municipality, and as well as with work with the parks planning group, and as well as the interim manager of Bylaw. And she does an incredible job at all 3. And it's going to be a difficult challenge for us to find somebody that can fill those shoes. And so I just wanted to share that with you openly here tonight. And I'll be sending around a notice to all staff in the coming days to let everybody know. Her last day with us will be October 13th. She will be at the October 11th council meeting, so we'll get a chance to say goodbye to her then too.
Yeah, okay, thanks very much, William. We certainly will miss her. Now
She'll still be on the island, and maybe we can rope her into some committee work or something.
Yes, contract work.
It has been time.
Yeah. Okay, update to council on Metro Vancouver business. Metro Vancouver Director David Hawkins.
Sure, thank you, Gary. I think most interesting to us is something that happened in Lions Bay, and I'll just read you a motion that was carried. That the Metro Vancouver Regional District Board accept the Village of Lions Bay Regional Context Statement as received by Metro Vancouver on April 6, 2022, and that the board acceptance be conditional on the Village of Lions Bay commitment to delete the urban containment boundary from the regional context statement, and that their next OCP update be consistent and reflective of the new regional rural designation.
Yeah, they got it.
So
yeah, that's pretty fantastic for them.
So they're outside of the urban containment boundary?
They will be. Isn't that great? Good for them.
that was late July.
Yeah. Wow. That's really pretty excited about that. Is that it, David?
Yes, that's it.
Thank you. Update to council on the trust business items. Trust municipal trustees, Pass and Kale.
Why don't you lead off, because I wasn't at the council meeting, I had COVID.
Yes, and that's why that's up. Was there anything you wanted to add on in addition to that? Basically, it was very interesting. It was the last. It was kind of the wrap-up meeting of Islands trustees for this 4-year period. So we went through the business in hand, and then I think that the takeaways I had is that the policy statement that they've been working on has gone through several revisions, and that will definitely be the purview. What they've done, and this is hugely essential, thank goodness, they're going to put it out. They're not going to do what they've done before. They're working on a document that they feel is really manageable and ready to go, and then do a consultation period. And I think the logic of it is greatly superior to what they've done so far. So the new policy statement will definitely be in the hands of the new trustees. And I think that just makes a lot of sense. The governance committee is now established as a standing committee, and again the governance committee, whilst it will probably not make any strong recommendations before the next term, it will probably be influential on recommendations to of the new executive committee, which is one of the issues with general agreement on there could be some new ideas brought forward. Because what had happened before is at the very first meeting, the trustees nominated the executive committee, which basically they were living with for the next 4 years. And a lot of those trustees were new. So you can appreciate they just arrived for their first meeting and they were basically voting for or nominating or whatever people they hadn't had a chance to meet or in any way get to know. So generally thought that that was a procedure that needed to be updated, reviewed, improved, and I'm sure it will be. So definitely a sign of meeting. There's going to be a lot of change at the Islands Trust. There are many trustees who are simply not running again. They're just not running, period. And there are many trustees who are interested in positions with the regional districts. So we're going to see a big turnover, big turnover. And it's a subjective thing to report on, but you had a feeling that there was quite an undertow, an undercurrent of people lobbying for different types of trustees in the various islands. And my more informal feedback with other trustees saying, well, you know, we just don't know what the end result is going to be, no more than we know what the end result is going to be in our own council elections. But the feeling was it was going to be different, whatever that meant, because there were people working very hard on groups of trustees or people that they felt would represent their own opinions. So it isn't going to be just the same old. The other interesting issue that came up is by acclamation. And anyone listening to the news this morning was listening in Ontario, and we're no different here. The amount of councils and council positions get approved purely by acclamation. And that is true also with Islands Trust. Many of the islands with smaller populations, and I'm not trying to pick on them because it could be any, it tends to be with smaller populations, simply approve their trustees by acclamation. They never have to campaign, they never have to state what they're interested in, not like all of us did to be where we are now. They were just acclaimed. So I think we're going to see, generally speaking, feeling that, you know, really, is that what we want? Generally, I don't know whether Metro have any feeling on this, David, but it is coming up as an issue that a lot of people working or elected, or so-called elected within municipalities, if it's by acclamation, that is maybe far from our ideals. So you can see that coming up as a possible emerging issue. So it was all, as far as possible, hail fellow, well met, and signing off on 4 years. And good to see the governance committee will move ahead, and also good to see that the policy statement seems to be in a more settled and a more, I think, more mature condition than it's been so far. That's been a very, very troublesome exercise for the trust in the last 4 years. So I would welcome any comments from you.
Sure, I'll just chip in a couple of pieces. Around the edges, I just wanted to point to 12.2 in our agenda. You'll see a letter from the Islands Trust Council to Minister Osborne about proper disposal of derelict docks, and a letter to Prime Minister Trudeau and Premier Horgan about the support for the fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty, and some other information. I'll be, as a member of the executive committee, I've got 3 more meetings to we have a weekly phone call on Wednesday mornings, and one more on October the 5th will be the full meeting, although online. What Michael may not have mentioned is that this was a Zoom meeting, that Trust Council Zoom meeting. Yeah. And so there are just a few more meetings left at the Islands Trust side. I've got one more on Hornby, but I think that's a Zoom as well. And one more Islands Trust Conservancy meeting, of which I'm the vice chair for that one. And then one more of the Financial Planning Committee just before the election. So which I'm on that as well. So just to let you know, I think usually Councillor Morse might be able to remember, but I'm pretty sure it's usually something like 50% of trustees change. That's what people have been telling me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Over the years, yeah.
over the, they change over at each election. Yeah, so it's usually a new budget, and we've got more orientation and get to know you and get to know the system things underway, partly because of the recommendations from the governance review report. And so, which is great. We've got a review that was done. Let's take some of the advice and see what we can do within the limitations of the very prescriptive Islands Trust Act. So I'll just stop there and say anybody's got questions can get in touch.
Okay, thank you, Sue Ellen. We'll move on to an
Thank you,
update.
Michael.
An update to Council on Metro Vancouver Regional Parks Committee, Councillor Nicholas. Wayne.
Thank you, Miranda. And apologies if I start coughing again. Unlike Sue Ellen, I have not fully recovered yet from having COVID. So we met, the Parks Committee met last Wednesday. It's an extremely brief meeting with two essentially information reports, one dealing with the park associations and how Metro staff engage with the park associations that it supports, and the other was on program strategies for the essentially for the future. And the key takeaway from that second presentation is that more and more people are not interested in being members of associations, committees. They're interested in what they described as episodic activities, something specific that someone could do, contribute to, enjoy, and bring it to a close, and have no further commitment unless they wanted to have that. So I think our meeting was over in the space of about 20 minutes. Which is extremely quick. And there was no closed meeting. There was no discussion that was Bowen related. There was no discussion of Cape Roger Curtis, just not on the agenda at this point at the committee level. And we will have one more meeting on October the 12th, and that will end our year for the Parks Committee. So that's it.
All right, thank you, Maureen. Update to Council on TransLink's Mayor's Council's meeting with Councillor Allison Morse.
Lost my agenda.
Oh,
We're not meeting, we're meeting on Thursday.
okay.
And that will be the last meeting. And the main item on the agenda is the, if you look at information item 12.87B, there's consultations going on right now, and I don't know if anybody besides me signed up for the webinar on Wednesday. Wednesday at 1 o'clock. It's late for local government consultation, but anyhow, I think the main item of discussion will be the submission on the permanent transit fund, what they're going to use of the money, how it should be given out.
Oh, that's good. It's gone that far anyway. That's encouraging.
Well, the government announced that permanent transit fund in the budget, and then now they're saying, okay, general public and everybody else provide comment on how you think we should use it.
Yeah.
So this will be the TransLink's Mayor's Council submission. We'll be talking about it on Thursday.
All right.
And I don't have the draft yet, so I can't.
Okay, so 11.7 is to move to a closed council meeting. The council, the recommendation is council move to close. Closed meeting immediately following the regular council meeting. Discuss it pursuant to section 90, section 1E and J of the community charter. I'll move that. Thank you, David. All in favor?
Wait, and then there's the acquisition, right? There's more, right?
Oh, it's E and J.
Oh, no, we don't. It's
91.
Those are just the sections. I don't know. Okay, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Maureen, thank you. And information ties, and then we'll get down to question period. Bob, are you here? Bob's gone.
He said his question was answered.
I know.